Hello friends, so hope all of you are doing well. So in today's session we are going to discuss about different types of meter. This lecture is basically going to be a continuation of previous two sessions that I've taken on prosody and meter and metrics, both included in the topic a prelude to poetry, which is included in your British poetry syllabus. So for those of you who are watching this video for the very first time, let me tell you that I have been doing this topic in a chronological fashion so that it helps you in the upcoming term and examination. So if you like the video, then do consider to hit the like button so that we can reach a wider audience, and also do join the Facebook page and Facebook group where we update regularly about the IGNOS notifications, the latest notifications and news, which will help you in your preparation. So without any further ado, let's start with the video. So before we start the session, let us quickly revise the symbols which are used in order to scan a passage in verse, and sometimes also in case of prose. So in the screen you can already see a chart of the symbols, the name of the symbols and the purpose. So the forward slash is known as the acute accent, and the purpose of this symbol is to represent the stress syllable. Similarly, the U, which represents the unstressed syllable, is known as the breve, and it represents the weak syllable. And then the three symbols are there. That is the first, a straight line, a single line, that is the division between feet. Then two lines are there, a double line, which is a pause in the line. And the last one is a rest. Okay, it represents a rest in the verse. So there are basically four types of meter. Number one, syllable stress or accented syllabic meters. Number two, strong stress meters. Number three, syllabic meters. Number four, quantitative meters. Let us discuss all of them one by one. So the first one is syllable stress or accented syllabic meters. We already know by our previous lectures that the smallest unit of meter in poetry is foot. Now the four principal foot or feet found in English verse are iambic, trochee, anapaest, dactyl. Now the word iambic might sound very familiar because I have discussed it in the previous session. Words like appear, behold, attack, supply. Now these words are iambic. Let me quickly explain why they are iambic. Because the representation of iambic foot, that is the particular foot that is being used here, is represented by the way how we use the unstressed and stressed syllable. Like the word appear. The first part of the word appear is unstressed and the later part is stressed. Okay, appear. You can understand it by the way I pronounce it. The second word is behold. Similarly, you can see the later part is given more stress. So this is a iambic. So you have to understand it with the help of the symbols that I have used in the chart. Like the first syllable is unstressed and the second syllable is stressed. Okay, so that is iambic. Now if you have understood iambic, it is very easy to understand the next one, that is trochee. Trochee is exactly the opposite of iambic, where the first part is stressed and the later part of the word is unstressed, like tiger. Now when I say tiger, you will see that I emphasize or I stress the first part of the word tiger in a very emphasis manner, in a very stressed manner, and the later part in an unstressed manner. So this is the representation of trochee. Then we have words like holly, upper, and grandeur. All these words you will notice that the first part of the word is been given more stress compared to the second part. So this is the unique feature of trochee. Now the third is anapaest. In anapaest, you will see that in a particular word we have three syllables. Now in case if you don't remember what is a syllable, but syllable is particularly a word or a part of word which has a vowel sound or a consonant sounding as vowel. Alright, so let us discuss about anapaest. In anapaest we have examples like understand, colonnade, reappear. Now since you have already understood the symbols, you will understand that in case of understand, we give more emphasis on the third part of the word. Let me make it clear for you guys. Understand is basically a word of three syllables. Understand. Okay, and I'm giving more stress in the third part of the word, that is stand. Okay, so this is the unique feature where we use three syllables. The first two are unstressed and the third is stressed. Similarly, we have words like colonnade, reappear. Alright, the first two are unstressed, and the third part of the word is stress. So basically all the words that we have in this category have three syllables. Okay, and in the three syllables, the first two is unstressed and the third one is stressed. Let's see the dactyl. Now similarly as in case of iambic and trochai, anapaest and dactyl are exactly opposite of each other. In case of dactyl, you will notice that the words again have three syllables, but the first syllable is stressed like desperate, and the remaining two parts, the remaining two syllables are unstressed. Like in desperate, you will see the first part is stressed, desperate. Okay, so three syllables are there and the first is stressed, the remaining two are unstressed. Similarly, words like messenger, property, infamous. Now you might ask me a question that, sir, how will you understand that, how to figure out the what feet is being used? So the basic way is to read it louder. All right, you have to read the poetry or the words in the particular verse in a louder fashion. In that way you will be able to figure out that. That will take some time, of course, but eventually you will be able to understand. So besides the major 4 feet, we have other feats as well which are not that popular and relevant, but still I'll mention it. That is spondy, which is a particular word with two syllables. In this case both the syllables are stressed. And then we have pyrrhus, which is two syllables word and both are unstressed. Okay, they also occur as substitution in a passage of verse. So the second category in the types of meters is the strong stress meters. So particularly strong stress verse is measured by count of stresses alone. The strong stresses are usually constant, but the number of unstressed syllables may vary considerably. So in this category, primarily in strong stress meters, what we need to remember is that it's a particular verse is measured by the count of stresses alone. All right, and also this strong stress meters was used prior to syllables. All right, so it's quite prehistoric in case of poetry, and we have to also understand that the long stresses that are used in verse are always and most of the times constant, but the number of unstressed syllables, it used to vary. Strong stress meter was normative to Old English and Old Germanic heroic poetry, as well as to Old English lyric poetry. As I've mentioned, strong stress meters were used prior to syllables. Okay, the first category. So let us see an example of strong stress meters. Today the strong stress survives in nursery rhymes and songs. Let us take this particular nursery rhyme which is very familiar to all of us. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. So in this particular passage you will notice that we are using the strong stress meter, and primarily the count on the strong stress is constant and the number of unstressed syllables might vary. So this is a good example for strong stress meter. So the next category is syllabic meters. In case of syllabic meters, stresses and pauses vary. The number of syllables in each line, however, remains fixed. Now what is a syllable? Syllable is particularly a word or a particular part of word which makes a vowel sound, or a consonant which makes a vowel sound. So in this case, in syllabic meters, we notice that in each line the number of syllables remains fixed. It remains constant. So in case of poetry in romantic languages, languages that have grown out of Latin, the languages of ancient Rome such as French, Italian and Spanish, is dominated by syllabic meters. So we see that in romantic languages, in romantic poetry or in romantic work of some old languages, syllabic meters was used very predominantly. Okay, but in English, however, to most ears, the syllable count alone does not produce any rhythmic interest. So let us now see an example of syllabic meter. In case of syllabic meter, it largely ignores stresses and instead develops a rhythm by counting the number of syllables in each line. Now we already know that the number of syllables in case of syllabic meter in each line, it remains fixed or it remains constant. So Dylan Thomas' poem In My Craft or Sullen Art is a famous example of syllabic meter, with 7 syllables to each line and 6 in the final line. So if you want to go through that poem, I would highly recommend that you can go through that poem and you can understand the syllabic meter in details. So the last type of meter that we are going to discuss in today's session is quantitative meters. Basically the name suggests it all. Quantitative means quantity. Quantity in the present context refers to the time we take to pronounce a syllable. So that's all you need to remember from this quantitative meters. Basically we are going to discuss about where it was used primarily and what is the difference between quantitative meters and the other meters that I have discussed in today's session. It is a product of the duration for which we pronounce the vowel at the nucleus of the syllable. Okay, primarily our entire discussion in this category is dependent on the time we take to pronounce a particular syllable in a particular word, okay, or that particular word might be a syllable, because we know that syllable is either a word or a part of word. For instance, you can pronounce sweet rose in various ways, shortening and lengthening the vowel sounds as you please. Now if you notice properly, in the word sweet we have a vowel sound E, and in the word rose we have a vowel sound O. Now depending on the length of those vowel sounds that you make while pronouncing those words or uttering those words, you can change the duration of the words spoken. Okay, so that is how it is done, and that is the main factor of quantitative meters that has been implemented mostly in Greek and Latin poetry. This variability, however, could hinder communication between the poet and you as the reader. So that is quite predictable, because if you change the length of the vowel sounds in a particular word, obviously there will be a communication gap between the poet and the reader. Now if you compare Sanskrit or Hindi for that matter with English, you find that you cannot exercise your discretion in lengthening or shortening the vowel sound or the quantity of the syllable in the two Indian languages. They are predetermined by the linguistic system of Sanskrit and Hindi. Now the same thing has been compared with Sanskrit and Hindi. You will see that in Sanskrit and Hindi the same thing, the concept of quantitative meters cannot be implemented, or even if they can be implemented, they has to be done by their linguistic system of Sanskrit and Hindi, not by the particular rules set in the English literature. The quantitative meters dominated Greek and Latin poetry because they are highly inflected. Now as I have mentioned that this quantitative meters has been predominantly used in Greek and Latin poetry. Now when I say inflected, what it means? To inflect a word is to change its form at the end according to its peculiar case, mood, tense and number. For instance, we can say that child and boy inflect differently in the plural. The inflection promoted the construction of long, slow-paced lines because those languages supported the alternation of the long vowels in the roots and the short ones in the inflection. English, which most of its inflections in the 15th century, unlike German, is less hospitable to the quantitative meters. Now the key points that we need to remember from quantitative meters is, first of all, it actually represents the time that we take to pronounce a particular syllable in a particular word or a part of word. And secondly, that changing the length of the pronunciation or the time taken in order to pronounce a particular vowel sound in a syllable, we can change the variation, okay? And that variability can actually cause a hindrance between the poet and the reader. Also, we need to remember that in quantitative meters, it was predominantly used in Greek and Latin poetry, and it was very much lessly used in English language. That means English literature was less hospitable to quantitative meters. So this is the video, guys. In today's session I've discussed different types of meter. This is one of the most complicated topic of British poetry, which is very important from the examination perspective. So if you want me to cover this type of topics in a chronological fashion, do not forget to hit the like button so that we can reach a wider audience and we can help them out. And also, if you have any doubts regarding this, do feel free to comment in the comment section. I'll definitely address it in the next video. So till then, God bless you and thank you all.